Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
From the powerhouse Blowtorch, Talk Radio 77 WABC, warming up the airwaves, of course, and broadcasting from the center of the universe, New York City. Welcome to another exciting edition, as you tell us, of the Dr. Sky Experience. We like to call it Theater of the Mind, coming to you in your mind, in your homes, and in your vehicles, always discussing great topics from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests, and stories of American exceptionalism. To get in touch with us here, you rule as the callers here on the radio show. The contact number is always 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. And we'd like to say, of course, thanks to our helmsmen, Tony and Bill, who navigate this powerhouse signal of this radio station out to you, as you would expect, ladies and gentlemen, clear and, of course, effective. As we move now to the period time when we call daylight saving time, in just about another 24 hours, and we simply know whether we like it or not, moving forward in this particular time period. Did you know, once daylight saving time is in effect, some 238 days until we move into November 1, 2026. But ladies and gentlemen, as we look deeper out into the cosmos, a very special guest, of course, for the 2 hours, an individual that you probably do know, Dr. Michael Guillen, for over his particular career, the award and Emmy Award-winning science editor for ABC News. So much more to talk about, but what's more important than that? A groundbreaking AI-generated documentary on science and faith that premieres April the 8th, just a little bit away, and you'll hear much more about it. It's called The Invisible Everywhere. What's it about? The Invisible Everywhere takes viewers on Dr. Guillen's journey from atheism to Christianity using AI-generated imagery that reveals the mind-blowing invisible cosmos beyond us and within us. As a world-renowned scientist, Guillen has shocked, and it is to learn that modern science does not eliminate God, it leads to him, in his opinion. Dr. Guillen earned a Ph.D. in astronomy, one in physics, one in mathematics from Cornell University, taught physics for 8 years at Harvard, and for 14 years, as mentioned before, the Emmy Award-winning science editor for ABC News. And you may remember him for his contributions over the years to Good Morning America. The Invisible Everywhere is believed to be the first full-length motion picture to be fully produced by a single person using consumer-level artificial intelligence, video generators, voice generators, and editing tools of a home desktop computer. No Hollywood studio, no Hollywood budget, no Hollywood overlord, just Dr. Guillen, Dr. G, recounting his personal transformation in a stunning cinematic journey. And to begin our program, let's hear a little excerpt from the YouTube official trailer from The Invisible Everywhere.
used to think it was childish to believe in a God I cannot see. I have a PhD in physics, math, and astronomy from Cornell. I taught physics at Harvard. And I was the Emmy Award-winning science editor at ABC News. My motto? Seeing is believing. But then I began asking some deep questions, and the answers rocked my scientific worldview to its core.
And with that, we welcome a hearty welcome to Dr. G, Dr. Michael Guillen. Michael, thank you for joining us. Always a privilege and honor to talk with you. And I know we met just a couple of years ago, so we had the opportunity to share ideas. But thanks for joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very well, Steve. Really looking forward to our conversation. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Man, I want to watch that movie. Based on that. I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I'm like, I want to watch that movie. But, you know, it's interesting. I love the opening to your show. It's like Look to the Sky, and it reminds me of one of my all-time favorite science fiction movies. You may know it, The Thing, the original one, not the remake, the original. Absolutely. Baby. Mm-hmm. That's and I love the reporter in that. I mean, up in the Arctic, and the movie ends by saying, "Look to the sky."
That's exactly right.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Anyway, Steve,
and for years we used that outro for some of the other shows that we were doing nationally. But that's amazing. So our introduction, this is quite interesting. You're the author of so many books. We'll talk about those, but obviously concentrating on this, I find it fascinating. And what I really want to start off with here is just the amazing part of the invisible everywhere. Just give us more information. As I read this, you're the one who did it. This is not something from a big Hollywood studio. Let's talk about the intercession of AI and how all this came about and the excitement for the premiere on April 8th.
I'd be happy to. It started, I would say, when I wrote the book, Believing a Scene, a physicist explains how science shattered his atheism and revealed the necessity of faith. That's quite a mouthful. That subtitle came from the publisher. Yes. But the book to this day is a huge bestseller. I mean, it remains on the top 10 list in cosmology and science and religion on Amazon. It's just amazing. It's one of those books that just has legs. It's destined to become a classic. I mean, we're almost 5 years. It'll be September 7th, it's 5-year anniversary. So it started with that, and it was so well received. And as I went around speaking in various places, college campuses and elsewhere, invariably people would come up to me afterwards and say, "Wow, you should make a movie out of that." And I shrugged it off because I had other things to do, and I thought, I had made a movie already, Little Red Wagon. It was very successful. Yes. It was in the theaters. It's now on Amazon Prime and elsewhere. Anyway, it's distributed by Lionsgate. So I know that whole world of movie making, and I know that it is a whole lot of work. I mean, it took us about 5 years to make Little Red Wagon. And when I say us, it was me, and I had a crew of about 150 to 200 people to make that movie.
That's
5
a
years.
lot of people.
Imagine. Okay, keep that in mind, Steve. Okay, keep that in mind because of what I'm about to tell you about how I made The Invisible Everywhere, just to contrast it for you,
please.
and your listeners. So Little Red Wagon cost me about $8 million, right? Took about 5 years to make, and it had a crew and a staff of at least 200 people. All right, we shot it in Charleston, South Carolina, and so forth. Had a great director, David Anspaugh, who did the movie Rudy and Hoosiers, celebrity director.
Sure, high class.
So, right, on and on and on. All right, so keep that in mind. Now I'm about to tell you what happened. So about a couple of years after my book came out, I decided, well, what the heck? Yeah, I should start writing a script. Let me just start there. Let me just start writing a script, right, to kind of communicate the essence of my journey from atheism to Christianity by way of all the major religions, by the way. We can talk about that. And so that script took me about a year to do because, writing a script is it's a laborious process. You write your first draft, then you have the second draft, third draft, fourth draft, so forth. So it's about a year, right? So I sat on the script for a little bit, and I figured, okay, well, I'm looking at the script, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm trying to bring the invisible universe to the big screen. I'm trying to bring the invisible universe to life, the universe no one has ever seen before. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to need special effects. So I had a friend of mine who's in the special effects business. He's a big Hollywood guy. And I said to him, Sean, look at my script. Tell me how much you think it's going to cost to do special effects. Well, to do it really, really well would be like $100 million, right? I mean, to do a good job, about $100 million. Well, I mean, $100 million does not grow on trees. So I'm thinking about
not at all, no.
Right, Steve? I mean,
I hear you.
And I don't have a rich aunt or a rich uncle, and so I'm like, okay, here we go again. The routine is like I did with Little Red Wagon. You find an investor, then you attach talent to it. You attach a director, blah, blah, blah. That's why it takes so long to make a movie. And then February of last year, towards the end of February, it's like the 23rd or the 24th of February. It's actually a day I will never forget. So about 4 a.m. I was, I think, either still asleep or half asleep. I can't even remember, but it was 4 a.m. And I don't know how to describe this to you because I don't want it to come out sounding too strange. I'm a physicist after all, and so I like to keep it grounded. But all I can say is I felt this kind of overwhelming calling that spoke to me. It just like took over and just spoke to me, and it said, don't wait, make this movie now, even if you have to use your iPhone camera. I wasn't even thinking about the movie.
No, that's incredible.
4 a.m. Steve, 4 a.m. I'm thinking about sleeping at 4 a.m, okay?
Right. And a big difference from going to the big Hollywood side, to production, to doing this on your own. So that's a big, bold step in a different direction. You bet.
Yes, sir. And so I thought to myself, what is that? And in fact, I was so flummoxed that I texted my colleague, Steve Macbeth, who's an old Disney guy. He worked at Disney. He was third in command at Disney. And I texted Steve, and I said to him, this is what's just happened. And so he texted me back. He said, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do it. And I thought, the first thought I had, and I know this may sound funny to you and your listeners, but I'm just telling you what happened, okay? I'm an old reporter. I'm an old reporter. I've been at this for decades, so I'm just reporting the facts. And so I thought to myself, well, I do remember Kanye West, reading something about Kanye West doing a music video using his iPhone camera. I just remembered that. Right. And so I thought, okay, well, making a movie is a lot different than a music video, but hey, if he can do it, I can do it. So I made plans to buy a new iPhone. I got lights, I got microphones, I got the green screen. I was all set to go. And then about a week or two into this thing, and it was like an Alice in Wonderland experience. I mean, it's like, what am I doing? Making a movie with my iPhone camera? This is crazy.
What a revelation, yeah.
I mean, seriously. Right?
No, and so many people, Doctor, do this. I mean, but the point is, your transition from being in the world of broadcast. And just to let everybody know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience, a privilege and honor to have Dr. Michael Guillen joining us. We call him Dr. G, and you can call him the same. Many, many years being in this industry, he's earned 3 PhDs, one in astronomy, physics, and mathematics from Cornell. And also, you may remember him, and he certainly appreciates your questions and comments at 1-800-848-9222, was the Emmy Award-winning science editor for ABC News. And many out there may remember him from his reporting with Good Morning America and Nightline with Ted Koppel. But that is an amazing transformation, Doctor, going from the technology of the big studios and the big pay, the big money there, to doing this yourself. His brand new AI-generated documentary on science and faith, ladies and gentlemen, called The Invisible Everywhere, premieres April the 8th. And we're privileged to have him testifying here on the Dr. Sky Experience about how all this came to fruition. Amazing story, Doctor.
Right. And it's, by the way, theinvisibleeverywhere.com. But anyway, let me pick up where I left off. So,
Yes.
so I'm thinking, okay, I'll make a movie with my iPhone camera. And then what I started noticing, now keep in mind, this is just about a year ago. What are we in March now, right? So we're talking about something that happened in late February, early March. So almost exactly a year from today, a year ago today. And I started noticing online people talking about AI video generators. This was brand new. Steve, this is crazy. It's only a year ago, but it could have been like centuries ago because it was like in its infancy. And I'm thinking, what is an AI generator? What is that?
Exactly.
And
Very
nobody was talking. Now everybody's talking about it now, but nobody was talking about it back then. And so I dug in, the old reporter in me. I thought, okay, I got to get to the bottom of this. I'm just curious. I didn't think anything more than I'm just curious. I want to find out. Back then, there was an app called Runway, and that was pretty much the only act in town, Runway. And it was an AI video generator. So I looked it up, and sure enough, there it was. And I just toyed with it a little bit. I gave it a few prompts, and it spit out like 5 seconds of video, because back then that was about as much as you could get.
Right. The technology wasn't as good as now, of course.
No, it wasn't. It was like it was an old jalopy. It was like the old first cars that were brought out. But,
Model A's, Model T's, right?
Model A, thank you. Thank you. It was like it was like the Model A, right? The Runway, and but a little bell went off in my head, and I did this for a few days, and I'm thinking, doggone it, I'm going to ditch my iPhone camera. I think I can make the movie this way. Now, I'm making like a full-length motion picture at 5 seconds a pop. That's a lot of work. But I figured, hey, it beats the iPhone camera. So it just really took a step in faith, and here we are a year later, and I've made this entire movie on my desktop. Oh, by the way, I won't leave out this. So I'm thinking I started doing it. I started using Runway, and then there was another one called Hailuo, and then and then Kling came along, and then much later Sora. Now, of course, you have so many others. And everyone that started coming online, I just tested it. And what would happen is, okay, I started with 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I had 80 seconds of movie left made, and then my computer crashed.
Oh no!
Because I'm doing all of this on my little lap on my desktop computer in my office here in Texas. It's just me and my computer, and it crashed. And I'm thinking, holy moly, I'm going to have big video files, like MP4 files they're gigabytes. And so I had to invest in a gaming computer. I went on Best Buy, and I looked up gaming computers. Cost me about $2,000. Then for about $150, I got myself a big, beautiful monitor, and that was it. And then
it's an amazing story, Doctor.
It's an
amazing story. But what I want to ask you here, in the time we have limited, and you know from the broadcast world how quickly time goes. I've always said this, and I think many of the listeners agree when they email me. My email is just drsky@wabcradio.com. And they say, wow, 1 hour guests go by so fast. And with commercial time and other things in there, you're like so limited. But now with this time, your questions and comments, ladies and gentlemen, to a man who has a lot of knowledge here. We seek out those that obviously really have the right stuff, as we call it, 1-800-848-9222. But I want to ask you this. For everybody listening out there, let's hear about Dr. G and his early, your early years. I mean, you come from humble means. Let's talk about this. You were born in East L.A., and your dream was to become a scientist. Talk about this, because this is not that you came from, any wealthy family to put you into prestigious schools. You had to work hard. Tell us your basic story there, so everybody out there, maybe there's young students out there listening. It doesn't necessarily get easy, but there's many ways to do it if you stick to it. Tell us your story, Doctor.
And I hope my story does inspire young people. Yeah, I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. Mm-hmm. I was born in East Los Angeles, and, that's the poor Mexican part of L.A. Still is to this day, but the house I was born in is still there. It's kind of run down, which is sad to me when I go visit there, but there is a restaurant, Teresitas, which I love to go visit. It's still owned by a family. But yeah,
Beautiful.
that was I was born right there in the middle of the Mexican barrio in East Los Angeles. My dad was a journeyman carpenter. My mom was a housewife, old-fashioned. I had two sisters. I was the middle child. And, I remember my mom, God bless her, managed to feed all of us on my dad's earnings. And, I don't ever, we were poor, but I don't remember even thinking of myself as poor. I remember my mom ironing my jeans, so a nice crease in them before going to school. She would walk me to Belvedere Elementary School, which is right there in East LA. It's still there. And, my little sack lunch. And so that was that was the world I was born into.
Wow. And then it transforms. I'm moving fast forward here. Then you go to Cornell University. You earn a master's degree in experimental physics. And how about this, ladies and gentlemen? 3 PhDs. I mean, this is unbelievable. 1 in physics, mathematics, and astronomy. And then what? You've taught as an instructor at Harvard University.
Yeah.
You've also received honorary doctorates from the University of Maryland and Pepperdine. I mean, you're the full deal here. This is the full Monty.
It's
and
crazy.
This is interesting.
Well,
yeah, it's amazing.
I fell in love with science in the second grade. Go figure. And that was my ticket out. I wasn't athletic. A lot of kids who come from my circumstances, get sports scholarships. I wasn't. I was madly in love with science, and that love of mine just drove me to do all those things that you just said. I've been in the White House. I've interviewed Hillary Clinton. I was the first correspondent, actually. I mean, you could go on. It's been a crazy life, Steve, and here I am.
No, and I remember you, Doctor, as many people watch. I mean, I'm 70 years young. I pronounced that, and I'm happy to say it. I'm pretty good health. But what's more important than this, over the legacy of ABC News, I mean, I'd be watching, when I was in different locations back on the East Coast. I'm a native New Yorker, and proud to say that, of course, being on this radio station. But I remember watching you with Ted Koppel. I mean, the big news that happened, World News Tonight. Peter Jennings, we're watching you there, and Good Morning America. But I got to ask you, talk a little bit about Good Morning America. I mean, were you there the days of David Hartman, I gather, and Joan London? I mean, this goes back. Not that far back.
No, not that far back. David had already left, so when I came on board, it was Joan London and Charlie Gibson.
Yes, I remember
and,
that. Sure.
Right, remember that? And so it started there. Yeah, it started there. And it was interesting because I was teaching at Harvard at the time. And if you go back even a little bit before that, believe it or not, and we don't have time to tell the whole story.
No, I understand.
But I was actually, before all of that, I was hired by CBS News by Jonathan Katz, who was the executive producer of CBS Morning News, and he hired me to be their science and technology editor. I was still teaching at Harvard. And Gail Eisen was my producer. She was also producing Diane Sawyer, who at the time was on their flagship show, 60 Minutes.
I do remember.
And Gail Eisen, God bless her, New Yorker, through and through, was the one who kind of coached me. She started giving me tips about how to be on, because I was just an intellectual geek at that point. I mean, I had no TV training or anything like that, and I had written stuff for magazines, science magazines, but I had never been on TV, and Gail coached me. So then when I started with CBS Morning News, the news director over at WCVB, which is the ABC affiliate in Boston, he called me over to the office, and he said, "Hey, I've been seeing your stuff on CBS. I really like it. Would you be willing to do some reports for us here at WCVB? We'd like to have you on the evening news."
Sure. You bet.
And I said, sure. And I said, but he said, no. And I remember he said, no, we can't pay you the same that CBS can. He said, but I can give you freedom. And I made that deal with him. I said, look, okay, here's the deal. I will give up CBS. I'll come work for you all. I'm still teaching at Harvard, by the way, so I'm moonlighting. I'm
busy schedule, busy guy.
No, I'm leading this double life. And but I said, but on one condition. I said, I want to be able to experiment because I don't have TV experience. I just got a little taste of it at CBS, but I want to understand this medium. I want to understand how I can communicate science through television. He said, it's a deal. And I remember one, I'll just tell you this funny little story. Emily Rooney was the assistant news director at the time, who was Andy Rooney's. You remember Andy Rooney from
Oh,
CBS?
I sure do. Big powerhouse in broadcasting, right? Mm-hmm.
Big time, right? And Emily was his daughter, and she had a twin, and I forget his name, but he was a reporter at ABC News. So, but Emily, tough as nails, and God bless her, I love her. She's there in Boston, and she was the assistant news director. And I had just done an evening broadcast on some astronomy. It was some big astronomy discovery, right? Mm-hmm. And so sure. When the segment was over, I walked up the spiral staircase up to my office, and she was coming down the spiral staircase, and she stopped me in the middle of the spiral staircase, looking daggers at me. And she said, "If you ever use music in a news piece again," she says, "I'll have you fired."
Wow.
I was like, oh.
She meant business, right, Doctor? Yeah,
whoa, no. Emily was tough as nails. She was like her old man. Andy Rooney was a tough bird. And Kirby Perkins, who died, it was Emily's husband. Anyway, I could tell you stories.
You could write a book about that, too. But in the interest of time, Doctor, not to cut you short here, we're almost up against the hard break, ladies and gentlemen. But what we're going to do, and it's amazing to have Dr. G, as we call him here, and he wants you to call him that. It's Dr. Michael Guillen, his new AI-generated documentary called The Invisible Everywhere. Now, you may wonder, ladies and gentlemen, we promoted a little bit, played just the introduction to his YouTube documentary. Anybody can go there and see that in full length. But what's interesting, April 8th, and when we come back, Doctor, I want to get into a deeper discussion with you on the whole science here, because in many worlds, people are saying, well, so many of the scientists of today are of atheistic backgrounds. I mean, they have a right to be that if they choose to. Now, we're not here to change that. But in your mind, you also had gone down the path of, how do I say it, simply atheism in a generic sense, and then modified and moved on to Christianity. But ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear for the next hour and a half with your questions is so much evidence from a gentleman who knows so much about the realms of science. And again, this is an interesting dialogue to have about something so incredible. And we go on to some of the things that Socrates had said, and I quote, when it comes to knowing everything, and he said, and here I quote, "I neither know now, nor I think I know." So it is, as I should say it again, and here we go with the correct way to say it, I neither know nor think I know. So much in science is still up in the air, right, Doctor? We don't know all these different things.
Oh, yeah.
But the conversation shifts to a discussion with you about so many of the things that are going on in the world of quantum physics, Einstein, and relativity. We have the right person, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely, to answer many of the questions. But in about a minute or two, just before we go to that break, talk about your transformation from atheism to the whole side of Christianity or a God-created universe. Talk about that for just a minute or two.
Okay, I'll make it very brief. And that is, when I was a grad student at Cornell, I began asking some deep questions like, where did the universe come from? How did life on Earth begin? What is the nature of human consciousness? And, my beautiful, beloved science was offering me answers. It's the Big Bang Theory. It's modern evolutionary biology, blah, blah, blah. And I've always been a curious person, and my motto to this day is ask tough questions, demand honest answers. And the answers I was getting from my beautiful, beloved science just were not satisfying me. I could see through them. They were full of holes, and because I was in the meat factory. I was seeing how the sausage was made, so I could tell that. This is not so. I remember thinking to myself, well, where do I turn then for answers to these deep questions? And I remember one of my professors, Carl Sagan, an astronomer, when he was being interviewed, he would talk about something called the Vedas. I had no idea what the Vedas were, but I thought, hey, I wonder what Carl's talking about. And here I am in a confused state of mind. I'm a young man. I'm looking for answers to my deep questions. Maybe that's where I should start, these Vedas. This was before Google, my friend. So I had to go to the Olin Library, which is the grad student library at Cornell. I went to Olin Library, went up to the stacks, I started looking, and sure enough, I discovered that the Vedas are the sacred literature of the Hindu religion. And it fascinated me because that was the first time that I had an encounter with a major religion. So I just immersed myself in Hinduism. I don't want to say I became a Hindu, but in a way I did, and that was the beginning of my
And, Doctor, that
journey.
thought needs to be held just for a moment with your okay,
Yeah.
because we are
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
up on a break. Ladies and gentlemen, 1-800-848-9222. Talking with Dr. G. His new documentary, as we've mentioned before, a groundbreaking AI-generated documentary on science and faith, premieres April the 8th. He is Dr. Michael Guillen, known by many out there, the Emmy Award-winning science editor for ABC News in the past, Good Morning America, and so much more. We'll be right back with your questions and comments and so much more about the wonders of the universe and what makes it tick. We'll be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
You're listening to the Dr. Sky Report. Vital information from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather. Take a journey to the stars and beyond with Dr. Sky. Always remember to keep your eyes to the skies.
Only two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the former. A quote from the late, great Albert Einstein. As we continue with Dr. G, Dr. Michael Guillen, the author, the producer, and AI of a groundbreaking AI-generated documentary, The Invisible Universe. How did I do there, Doctor? Pretty good?
Well, it reminded me of the old Andy Griffith show. Remember, he was the peacekeeper. He was he was the mayor. He was everything. Well, I'm kind of like the jack of all trades with this AI generated movie. And by the way, I asked 3 chatbots, Grok, ChatGPT, and OpenAI.
Powerful AI engines, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, powerful. The 3 of them. Mm-hmm. I asked them, I said, is it true that I'm the first person to make an AI-generated movie on a desktop computer by myself using consumer-level AI tools? And they said, yeah. So,
that's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean...
well, then listen to this, Doctor. All the people listening around the world on this big, powerful blowtorch, Talk Radio 77 WABC, can you imagine all the inspiration that you're going to give them? Because they may be sitting there going, I want to do a whole documentary on my whole family and all the things that AI can do. But, ladies and gentlemen, you may hear on this particular show, the good doctor is not aware of this, from some of the other guests, we talk about some of the nefarious side of what AI can or will do, depending on your perspective. Yeah. But I want to hear, obviously it sounds interesting, and I think it's fascinating, but let's take the other side of the equation. Is there a warning that you also have about AI or concerns that you'd share with this audience from your science background? And tell us more.
Yes. I wrote a book about, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe even more than that, called The End of Life as We Know It, Ominous News from the Frontiers of Science. And I talk about artificial intelligence, I talk about the surveillance, I talk about genetic engineering, but in particular, I have a whole section on AI and how it's come about. It's an interesting book. I enjoyed reading it because I take the reader back to the beginnings of what led to AI. I mean, go back far enough. What was the seed that grew into this thing we are now calling AI? And of course, it is a full-blown revolution, like the Industrial Revolution, like the electric revolution, like the computer revolution. I mean, this is arguably the 4th greatest revolution of mankind.
It sure is.
And right, and if you look back at the Industrial Revolution and the electric revolution and the computer revolution, you realize, there are pluses and minuses. I mean, we don't make buggy whips anymore the way we used to because of the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, and paddle wheels and stuff like that they're gone. But on the other hand, the Industrial Revolution generated a lot of jobs. But sweatshops were also a problem. But And then you go to electricity. We don't have gas lamps around cities anymore. And
well, yeah, it's amazing when we talk about AI,
right?
because I've talked, and I'm sure you've read, and many people have read Ray Kurzweil's book. I started off back in the early part of this new century when he wrote The Age of Spiritual Machines, and now the singularity is near, and now what? The newer book, The Singularity is actually closer or nearer.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, Doctor, have we reached that point where the intersection of AI is with human and surpassing the humans, or no? You say no?
Yeah, well, Ray Kurzweil, I have a lot of respect for him. But, Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil, I think he was in Ithaca, New York, Cornell, where I went to school. And I think he was making a lot of news back then. But he is very optimistic about the singularity. And in case your listeners don't know what the singularity is, it's not the singularity like a black hole singularity.
Exactly.
It has a different definition in AI than it does in astronomy. So I just want to clarify that. In AI circles, the singularity refers to the moment when machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence. Well, we're not even close to that. There is something, and we don't have the time, but I'll just briefly say there's weak AI and strong AI, and I talk about that actually a little bit in the movie. So I won't get into it. But right now, now listen carefully. Every AI, robot, chat box, video generator, all that are weak AI. And they don't have a very high general IQ, what we call general IQ, right? They're very good at specialty things. They're very good at maybe making music or videos or what. But when it comes to general intelligence, today's AI is surpassed by the average human toddler. Okay, the average human toddler is smarter than today's AI in terms of general IQ.
Well, that's good to hear for many that are worried about AI superseding us. And
no, not yet. Right. And we're not even close. People like Kurzweil, they're hypesters, and I don't mean that in a derogatory. I don't mean to be disrespectful to him. And
I'm glad I have you to clarify this, because many people think that they are exactly that, and they're a little bit worried.
And Sam Altman over at OpenAI has made noises about, we're going to come out with general AI and strong AI. Well, it's right now it's the Holy Grail. We're not even close. Nobody has anything resembling strong AI, and until we have strong AI, we shouldn't even be talking about the singularity. That's beyond the cosmic horizon. I mean, that's over the rainbow kind of stuff right now. So I just wanted to cut. But there are dangers, but there are pluses, like my movie. I mean, who can fault my movie? I mean, here is a piece of creative art, and by the way, it's not just the visuals, but I have the music, the sound effects. I mean, it's a layered. Anything truly creative has to have layers to it, right? Right, Steve?
Exactly.
So,
and just to let everybody know, 1-800-848-9222 to get into with the conversation with the good Dr. G, talking about his groundbreaking AI-generated documentary, and maybe that inspires a lot of people to go out and do the useful side of AI, where they can, of course, who knows, maybe there'll be Academy Awards for things like this in the future, with robots giving the award, right, Doctor?
But, here, let me just mention something, another positive, because, the negative is, AI is quite definitely putting certain people out of work, people who do stuff like, even tax accountants. Well, you can write an AI program that'll do your taxes for you for much cheaper and much quicker. But, for example, let me give you a down-to-earth example of something beautiful from AI, apart from my movie, right?
Okay.
Which is a beautiful thing, if I have to say so myself. But there is a young man who lost his voice. He had his voice box was damaged permanently, and his father was wondering if my boy could ever talk again. Well, there is a company called 11 Labs, and I actually used 11 Labs, some of the AI voice generations in this movie. It's considered the premier company for AI voice generating, okay? And it's in New York, by the way. That'll make you happy, Steve. You're a native New Yorker.
Yes, sir, and right make there. Everybody who is New York happy, right? You bet.
Yes, that's right. 11 Labs, okay? So it is the A number one. And so AI can clone your voice. And so all you have to do is, this young man, the father found recordings of his son's voice that he had laying around and fed it into the 11 Labs app, and boom, now 11 Labs can make him talk anything he wants, and in his voice. I interviewed Stephen Hawking. I was actually the first American I may have been the first correspondent, period.
Now that's interesting. You got to meet him and interview him. That's amazing.
Oh God, yeah. No, that's a whole story. Again, I'm nervous because I know we're limited in time, so you got to tell me if I.
Oh no problem. I'll be the air traffic controller, like I say. That's what I consider this position, like bringing them in and out, the airplanes flying in safely.
There you go.
In and out from the control tower. We got about 3 minutes and counting. The good doctor.
Okay.
And that story I'm sure, amazing.
Okay, so real quick story about Stephen Hawking. I met him at Harvard. He came to Harvard when I was teaching to give a series of seminars, okay? And by then he was already just this hunched little figure in a wheelchair. They had to wheel him around, and he barely could talk. He would mumble. You would say, okay, Dr. Hawking, what is the first law of black hole thermodynamics? And this would be his answer. But amazingly, he had a young man next to him, and the young man would translate. And you say, well, Dr. Hawking said this, this, this. I don't know if it's true, but that was how he gave the whole seminar. Amazing. He would mumble, right? And then the young man would say, well, Dr. Hawking is saying this and this and that. Anyway, I got to meet him afterwards. And I guess I made an impression on him because about a year after that, no more than a year, because at that time I was doing double Dutch. I was teaching at Harvard and I was at ABC News. So less than a year later, he came out with his book, A Brief History of Time. And I thought to myself, ooh, this would be great to interview Stephen. So, and this would be for 2020. And which I did. I got to know Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs. By the way, he ended up in Arizona. But
yes, I knew him well.
So,
yeah.
Right. So my producer reached out to Stephen on my behalf and said, Dr. Guillen would like to interview you. Would you be okay with that? And he had a reputation at that point that he did not grant interviews for obvious reasons. I mean, sure. The man is incapacitated. But lo and behold, he remembered me from Harvard, and he said, yeah, come on down. So I flew to London. But here's the funny thing. I had to submit the questions ahead of time because he had to record in his voice box, in this electronic box, the answers ahead of time. So it was one of the most peculiar interviews I ever did, Steve. I flew there. He was living in the basement of some dorm. It was actually quite ignominious. I interviewed his wife. I interviewed his young son, Tim, who's not so young anymore. But it was the weirdest thing because I sat next to him, and I would ask a question for the sake of my camera. I would say, Dr. Hawking, blah, blah, blah. And then he would push a button, or not push a button, but he would blink his eye, and it would trigger the answer. And I would just sit there, and he would look at me with his frozen smile on his face.
Well, here we go, Doctor. With the time and space continuum, we have to go to a break here in just a moment. But no, that's fascinating. Hardly anybody out there I've ever talked to has interviewed Dr. Hawking. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about you here on the Dr. Sky Experience. Many questions. If you have questions, we do have the person who can, I'm sure, provide these answers in everything that we're talking about, including some interesting things that he's written for Fox News, an article, Is Heaven Real? Science May Reveal Where God's Eternal Kingdom Exists. More on the Dr. Sky Experience, and we thank you for listening to this radio show, ladies and gentlemen, nearly 1 year here on this powerhouse, very, very powerful radio station. As we say, heard in 173 countries, all 50 states, and broadcasting with our helmsmen, Tony and Bill, making sure you hear exactly what you want to hear in full production audio. We'll be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Howdy, this is Max Bear Jr., Jethro Bodine from the Beverly Hillbillies, and you're listening to the Dr. Sky Show. Hot dog!
Look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious. A quote from Stephen Hawking. 47 minutes after the hour, our very special guest, Dr. G, as we call him, Dr. Michael Guillen. He is with us through the next hour, too. It's hour number 2. Doctor, let's go to the phone calls. Let's welcome Joe in Warwick, New York. Joe, good morning. How are you doing? Your comments and questions. Please continue.
Dr. Guillen and Dr. Sky. The question I have for you, doctor, is that I see people coming out of universities like Harvard and places like that. People don't have the soft skills that they need anymore, from critical thinking or creative thought. What's going on there? I mean, communications between one another. I don't think I'm wrong here.
Interesting, Doctor. What do you think?
Yeah, no. Joe's right. And look, I have a Gen Z son, and when he was growing up, he's 26 now, but when he was younger, we homeschooled him part of the time, and my wife and I really wanted him to attend Harvard when he got to college age. Well, that was then, and this is now, and I completely changed my mind. And I don't want to speak ill about the school I taught at, because the 8 years I taught physics at Harvard were just really wonderful years. But I look back at them, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it's like I'm not an old dinosaur, but Harvard is a very different place today than it was back then. And I'm appalled at what's happened to Harvard. I would never send my kid there. And anybody listening right now, I just wouldn't do it. We don't have the time to get into it. But
no, I understand, Doctor. That's an interesting assessment. I mean, your opinion. But Joe in Warwick, are you with us? I mean, you get a final comment if you're there, because you bring up something very interesting. You obviously are passionate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I used to hire people from Ivy League schools, and they could do critical thinking. They took a bachelor's degree in science, and maybe even if it was in philosophy, when I worked in banking and technology, they adapted. You know what I'm saying? They weren't taught what to think, but how to think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Joe, and I just to use myself as an example, I mean, I was trained in an Ivy League school, Cornell, and look at me. I went into the TV business, the movie making business. It's because the critical thinking skills that I learned training to be a scientist are portable and they're transferable. But today, there's just nothing. Kids are not being educated in colleges today. They're being indoctrinated.
Well, you're interesting, Dr. G, here, because this is fascinating, and Joe brings up some very interesting points. And, what I find on this whole thing is when we talk about this, you look at all these different students that are out there. I mean, there's plenty of good students out there, but maybe some of those skills, and this is what we talk about, Joe, and you know this if you're listening to the show. The good doctor doesn't see this every day. We talk, what do I say all the time? We love dialogue, and we love critical thinking, and we're really serious about that, Joe, and I appreciate you bringing that to the audience. Thank you so much, Joe in Warwick. Appreciate you. Doctor, that's interesting. I mean, we don't want to sound like we're effete snobs that we're telling people how to think, but the reality is you're absolutely right. There's maybe a different culture. No, there is a different culture in the world today in many of the colleges, and not to say all students are not quality. That would be wrong for anybody to say. But you're right. A big change. You were there in the halls of Harvard, and you just told us you would not send your kid there.
No, I was there in the late 80s and into the 90s, and it's a very different place now. I'll just say two more things just to button it up, and that is the issue that Joe raises about critical skills. That's why I say to people, even now when I talk on college campuses, I tell these kids, I said, ask tough questions, demand honest answers. It requires you have to be a critical thinker in order to get honest answers.
Honesty is the answer.
It is. And the other thing I'll simply say, and I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I'll just say it. Look, the concept of a university, of a college, it dates back to the medieval days, right? And here we are still teaching, quote unquote teaching, although I don't think we're doing a whole lot of teaching in colleges today. Kids the same way, and I think AI is going to change all that. I'm making a prediction right here, right now, in the Dr. Sky Show, 2026, when they unearth this in a time capsule 100 years from now. But I'm making the prediction that colleges and universities, as we know them, are going to become obsolete. We don't need them. It's a terrible, inefficient way to teach and to learn.
And it's very expensive, right? I mean, look at Harvard. I have no idea what a semester at Harvard must cost nowadays. Am I correct? Somewhere in the $80,000 to $90,000 range?
Oh, yeah, for sure. If you include, book fees and all that, school fees and dormitory and all that sort of, it's hugely expensive. But also, I'll go to campuses to speak, Steve, and I see these kids trudging with their backpacks from one class to another, and I'm thinking to myself, what an inefficient way to learn. I'm trudging from one class to another, and then when I get to class, I sit there and I'm harangued by some Marxist professor, and what's that? I mean, that's
boy, do I like you.
Way to learn.
You're a breath of fresh air because, again, we haven't even gotten into the atheist versus the Christian view or a belief in God, and that will do with great science, I promise this audience. But it's amazing. A good friend of ours, Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs, he said something very interesting, and his quote sounds something like this: all knowledge does not come from college. What say you, Dr. G? There you go.
Absolutely, yeah. No. Again, I feel very strongly about it, and I'll tell you why. Because as I explained to you early in the show, I was born in East LA, and my ticket out was an education. Yes. But back then, you could count on, and I went to public schools, and I got a pretty decent education. I mean, I look back, and I'm thinking, that wasn't bad. I didn't feel like I was being indoctrinated. I felt like I was being educated. I remember it must have been in middle school. My science teacher, he would always wear a white lab coat. And I remember I joined the science club after school, and we made all kinds of cool things. I mean, but those days are gone, Steve. Those days are gone. And so I really feel that Mike Rowe has got something, that not all knowledge is college. And by the way, AI, everybody thinks that robots are putting blue-collar workers out of jobs. Well, in certain sectors they are, like the automobile industry.
Yes, right.
A lot of the old,
we hear that.
But let me tell you something. The white-collar jobs are the ones in greatest peril. I mean, you have, for example, a radiologist, okay, who reads X-rays and MRIs and so forth. We now have AI programs that have a better accuracy rate than the average radiologist. And so, you're a tax accountant and so forth. The white-collar jobs are the ones I think are in greatest peril. So Mike Rowe is right. I think what we're going to see, and you're seeing this among Gen Z right now, because as I say, we have a Gen Z son, is that trade schools, vocational schools are now exploding.
They sure are.
Kids are going, right? They're learning.
Right, the welder, the plumber, the person who's the electrician with common sense and an understanding of being able to create wealth without being demonized and being able to build on that whole foundation. And then we go on to the family. But isn't this amazing, ladies and gentlemen? We have a gentleman here with many PhDs from a prestigious school, at least he says it was. I'm not here to be the judge. Harvard University. But I want to promise the audience this. In hour number 2, if you will agree to this, Dr. G, let's talk about the concept from your news article that here was appearing on Fox News. Is heaven real? Science may reveal where God's eternal kingdom exists. And let's get into a discussion of some of the amazing things going on in the quantum world that I think a guy like yourself can help explain to this audience what some of the mysteries of the universe, going from Einstein, Hawking, and all the great people. Is there a collision, and we'll throw this out for later conversation, between relativistic astrophysics, meaning the quantum things, colliding with what we talk about with Einstein and theories of general and special relativity? May sound like a heavy deal for this hour of the night or late in the night in the West and early morning here. But ladies and gentlemen, you rule on this radio show. It's Theater of the Mind. And before we do this, Doctor, we'll dismiss everybody at the top of the hour so we can take an intermission and let everybody head to the snack bar if they want to do that in the old theater way. How about that? But the number here, 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And the good Dr. G's website for this particular iteration, the AI-generated documentary, that is theinvisibleeverywhere.com. And something that he's talking about that I find really fascinating here, and this is really important. When we look at wanting empirical evidence for things, many people would say seeing is believing. But you're describing two, right? Two, believing is seeing. It's just the opposite, but with information. We got about a couple of minutes. So, Doctor, let's take it down the highway before the top of the hour here, just a minute or two. I'd like to get into that conversation. Just set the stage before we have about a minute or two. Is heaven real? And let's talk a little bit about that, and we'll get into the depth of your Fox News article. There you go.
Okay. We have time right now to do it. Let's do it.
Well, no, I just wanted to set the stage for that in basically your writing here in the Fox News.
I did, yeah.
This is interesting.
I've written for Fox. Yeah, I've written for Fox News now for some years, and I wrote a piece that just blew up. I mean, it was just, and to this day, it's been replicated all over the world. It's one of the amazing things. But I just contemplated the question. Like I said, I just asked tough questions, and one of my tough questions is, the Bible says heaven is real. I believe in the Bible, and I've studied it from beginning to end over many decades. Ever since I decided that Christianity was the one religion that is most in line with modern science. That's all.
Right, and from a big step from the side of being an atheist, as you self-described, to moving on to Christianity. Yeah. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes hour number one. So much more on the Dr. Sky Experience. You too, ladies and gentlemen, can be part of the conversation at 1-800-848-9222 as we touch on the great mysteries of the universe with Dr. Michael Guillen, simply called Dr. G. We'll be right back for hour number two.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
You're with me, Dr. Sky, here with the Powerhouse Blowtorch, as we call it, warming up the airwaves. Talk Radio 77 WABC, and broadcasting proudly from the center of the universe, New York City, to the nation, the world, and I'm sure even out into the cosmos. As we call these particular radio shows, adventures in what we call, with critical thinking, theater of the mind. A special guest, and none other than Dr. Michael Guillen. We call him Dr. G, a well-known person in the realm of broadcasting for so many years. 14 years was the Emmy Award-winning science editor for ABC News. You remember him from Good Morning America, and so much in the way of professional broadcasting. His 3 PhDs, astronomy, physics, and mathematics from Cornell University. He also taught physics for 8 years at Harvard University, and he continues to be our special guest in hour number two. Why do we have him? Because he has answers to questions that you might have at 1-800-848-9222 on the mysteries of the universe, and also introducing his groundbreaking AI-generated documentary on science and faith, The Invisible Everywhere, which premieres April the 8th. Doctor, that's a lot to say, but welcome back, and thanks for being with us. We appreciate you.
Golly, no, I can't believe an hour has come and gone, Steve. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the second hour.
And you know that time is what? The warpage of space, space-time. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. Let's continue with the callers, Doctor, and then I want to get into your article. I don't want to, forget that.
Yeah.
Let's say good morning, as the callers are very patient. Good morning to Christine. Good morning, Christine in Manhattan. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, Dr. Sky, and thank you and Dr. G for this fascinating program that you're presenting today.
Thank you.
And you mentioned Einstein a couple of times, and you mentioned an interest in religion. And I remember something about Einstein, that the more science he went through, the more he believed in God. Didn't he make a statement like that one time?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Christine, you're absolutely right. A lot of people will misrepresent Einstein as being an atheist, but in my book, I believe it's in my book, Believing is Seen. If not, it's in another book, but I quote him because all his letters and all his correspondence and all that stuff are kept at Princeton because, he spent many years there at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Studies. And he is quoted, he said point blank in this particular letter from, I guess somebody had written to him asking him, Dr. Einstein, what is your religion or what do you believe? Do you believe there's a God or whatever? And he said point blank, I am not an atheist and I'm not a pantheist. And yes, you're quite right, Christine, that he and there are many beautiful quotes from him in many different ways in which he expresses it. His belief in God, and I, it's interesting, and I'm glad you bring this up, Christine, because so often we hear about atheist scientists like Richard Dawkins over in England, is an evolutionary biologist, and you know, I was an atheist myself, so I don't harbor any ill feelings. I don't feel like I need to convert anybody. I'm just here to share my journey with others in case it can be of some help to them. And if it isn't, well, I hope I didn't waste your time. But if you look at if you look at the great minds of science, going back to Galileo, Newton, Robert Hooke, the scientists who founded the modern scientific method in Europe, these were all people, men and women of great faith. And so it's a shame that today, it's not the smartest person in the room that gets the attention. It's the loudest person in the room that gets the attention. Right?
Christine, if you're with us, you get the last word on this. We got a full board of callers, but we always appreciate your commentary. Anything you'd like to add, Christine?
I want to say very quickly that I went through kind of a journey myself where I met some amazing people, Penor Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama, the great Bonpo teacher Lopon. I came through my lifetime, and I met them and talked to them. And it's an amazing, it ties in with Einstein's belief in God. And I noticed that there was a cohesion of these different areas of religion. I can't talk about it now, there's no time. But it was really earth-shattering for me. And I had an experience, for one thing, with a Hindu god, Ganesha, who is the remover of obstacles, among other things. So when I heard this program and the things that were being discussed, it was really very moving for me.
Well, Christine, I thank you. We have a full board of callers, but your commentaries are much appreciated.
Yes, thank you,
the
Christine.
Dr. Sky Experience.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Let's get a few more callers, and then we'll go ahead, because with callers rule, as we like to say, because we're honest about it. And without the callers, we would just be having a simple dialogue, but here we go. Let's say good morning to Tony in the Bronx. Tony, you're on with Dr. G. Dr. Michael Guillen, how are you this morning?
Good morning, guys. What an amazing show. Incredible, absolutely fascinating. And then you guys have something that you touched on earlier about just having critical thinking and emotional intelligence to deal with people. That's such a missing thing right now with the younger generation, but it's evident in the way you speak and the way you guys think. It's just brilliant. I just want to say thank you for the show. It's amazing.
Well, Tony, thank you. And Doctor, it's nice to hear a compliment on what we call common sense issues. That imagine this, Doctor and Tony, what if the world could figure how to get along with critical thinking? Maybe we would learn the problem of how to stop wars, right, for the history of mankind.
Yeah. Well, and I want to thank Tony for saying what he did, because he's absolutely right. Studies have shown that it's emotional intelligence, EQ we call it, that is the greatest indicator of success. Not IQ, EQ, how to deal with people. I tell that to my boy. I've told him since he was a little guy. I said, you know how to. Well, he's just gifted with people. But Tony is absolutely right, and this is something that, again, AI cannot fully replicate. And there's also something I call spiritual intelligence, SQ. It's part of the movie. It's part of the book. We won't get into it now. We don't have the time. But this is stuff that AI will not be able to replicate. These are quintessentially human traits, and we're not cultivating them in our schools. It's a shame. And Tony is absolutely right that to bring it up, and it was a nice compliment, but God bless him for saying it.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you for being part of this radio show, and hope you'll continue to be part of the Dr. Sky Experience.
Yes.
Now, Doctor, with your okay, let's talk about the depth of what's behind. Is heaven real? Your Fox News article, Science May Reveal Where God's Eternal Kingdom Exists. I read it a couple of times, and you have the floor on this, because this is fascinating from a guy who knows what's out there into the infinite. Give us your best evidence here in a summation of this article.
I will, and I'll just say this, Steve, and I know you'll understand. I'm not here as like some big know-it-all. I am someone like you, like the listeners, Tony, Christine, the others with Joe that we've heard from.
Absolutely.
I am just, I'm a sojourner. I see myself on a journey. And what I've discovered as a scientist is that the universe is so deeply mysterious. We ourselves, as human beings, are deeply mysterious, that there's plenty of room for disagreement. There's plenty of room for different ideas about what reality is or is not. And that's why I call the people who follow me, who listen to me and read my stuff and will see my movie, I call them my fellow travelers. I consider you my fellow traveler. I consider Christine a fellow traveler. Tony,
I love it. It's beautiful.
Traveler, right?
Yeah, I wish we could do this for 50 hours. Right.
Oh, I know. I mean, so you asked me the question about the Fox News thing. I had to preface it because I'm not saying like I know it all, but here I just always ask questions. I ask tough questions, and one of the tough questions I asked myself was this. All right, Guillen, you claim to believe in the Bible after doing decades of research, right? And you claim to be a scientist, right? So how do you square the two? If heaven is a true destination, how does that fit into your scientific worldview? So I began there with that simple question,
yes,
but a profound question. I think the most profound questions are the simplest ones. They're the questions that kids would ask. And I had my boy was 4 years old when we were at the dinner table, and he turned to me. He said, "Daddy, can you drive to heaven?" And I thought, drive to heaven? Well, that's a kid asking you. In other words, in his mind, he realized, right? Heaven is a destination. So how do you get
And especially
there?
with these gas prices today. There you go.
Yeah, right. That would be a lot of gas, right? So that was the motivation for writing the Fox News. And so one concept that has always fascinated me as I trained to be an astronomer was this notion there is, and I know our time is limited, so I'm going to condense it real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
When we talk about the universe, you have to understand that what we call the universe is actually just a tiny wedge of space-time. Now, Einstein was able to open our eyes to this fact with his special theory of relativity. I'm not talking about the general theory. I'm talking about the special theory of relativity, where he mapped out for the very first time, Einstein, and this was 1905, he mapped out for us what space-time looks like. You know, in the old days when I was a kid and we were on a road trip, I was assigned the job of holding the paper map and telling my dad, okay, well, in 2 miles you're going to have to turn right. That was before all these navigate. I mean, I was literally the early GPS. I
still love paper maps there, Dr.
Right?
G. They're still cool.
Paper maps, baby. I mean, paper maps, you know. And so Einstein, picture this, provided us with the first paper map of space and time. And lo and behold, there are these 4 different regions, and I talk about them in the movie. I don't want to give it away too much.
No, I understand. Sure.
Right? But the part that we inhabit, that we call the universe, and it's a conceited concept because it is not the entire universe. It's not the entirety of space and time. Is actually inside a cone-shaped part of space-time. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Don't ask me to elaborate because I don't want to get into it. It'll take too much time, and it's in the movie, and you'll see it, and it's amazing.
Absolutely.
The visuals are amazing. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So I'm sitting down to write this op-ed for Fox News, and all these things are swirling through my head. Okay, we're confined to this tiny little portion of space and time. Where would heaven be on this map, on this Einstein's map of space-time? Is it conceivable that heaven is in that map, or is heaven outside that map? That was the question I was asking myself.
Sure.
And so then I remember, okay, well, when we using the Hubble telescope and the James Webb and all the rest of it, now with Vera Rubin on the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile, amazing. We're able to map the universe very accurately, and we now know with pretty good certainty that it's about 93 billion light years in diameter.
And
right?
that's a big number, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a big number because at 1 light year is 6 trillion miles. So, but here's the thing. So that's number one. Okay, keep that in mind. Number two, since the 1920s, late 1920s, thanks to Edwin Hubble, we know that the universe is expanding. And when I say the universe is expanding, I'm talking about space and time itself is expanding, along with everything in it, okay? Now, but it's not just expanding in some random way. It's expanding in a way that the further out you go, the faster it's expanding, okay? So so keep that in mind. So this is called the Hubble law, that the universe is expanding not uniformly. It's expanding in a way that the further out you go in the universe, the faster it's moving away from us, okay? So if you go out twice as far from us, it's moving away from us twice as fast. If you go 3 times as far away from us, it's moving 3 times faster, okay? And so forth. That's the Hubble law. All right. Now, what am I leading to? So this is my thinking as I'm writing this op-ed.
Mm-hmm.
You reach a point far enough out into space where the recessional velocity when the speed of expansion actually reaches the speed of light. Hello.
Yes.
According to Einstein's special theory of relativity, nothing can go faster than the speed of light. It is a sacred speed limit of the universe. So the question then becomes, well, what happens beyond that point? And that point is called the cosmic horizon, okay? And it is about 46.5 light years away, which is half the diameter. It's the
you mean billion light years, right?
Yeah, 46.5 billion light years away. Okay,
Correct.
Which is about 270 billion trillion miles away. That's a lot of gasoline if you want to drive. All right, so now, are you following me? All right, this is my thought process as I'm writing this op-ed. As I say, I'm not a big know-it-all. I'm just following my curiosity and everything.
Well, let me stop you real quick. Let me stop you real quick, Doctor, because I want to interject a little bit of humor from Shakespeare about those that think they know so much. And here we go. In Shakespeare's comedic play, As You Like It, one of the quotes sounds like this: "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." How about that one about taking away from the humanity of knowing everything, right? Sorry to interrupt, but I just had to get that.
Oh, no. You stopped me right at the threshold of heaven, man, but okay. But no, it's okay. No, and by the way, as a corollary to that Shakespearean quote, I can tell you quite honestly that my experience as a scientist has humbled me. That's why I make it very clear to people when I speak. I'm not here as some big know-it-all. I'm just like you. I'm just asking questions. I'm trying to figure out this mystery that I inhabit. And by the way, not only do we inhabit a mysterious universe inhabits us. We are animated by an invisible cosmos, and I talk about that in the movie.
And knock, knocking on heaven's door, as the song goes.
It's not
right?
just about
We're not knocking on heaven's door.
Yes, I love that. So going back to the heaven thing. So if you go far enough out, the expansion velocity reaches this speed limit, the speed of light. And so you have every right to ask the question, okay, well, what's beyond that? Well, that's what's called, and it's not facetious, it's what we call it in astronomy. It's beyond the cosmic horizon. There is literally a realm, call it whatever you want, another universe, a realm, you fill in the blank. But there is an entire reality beyond the cosmic horizon that we will never see, that is beyond our reach. And if there is light there, like if there are stars and galaxies or whatever else is there, it will never reach us because it's too far away. It will never reach us. So
that's
then
incredible.
I thought to myself, my gosh, that's where heaven might very well be located, beyond the cosmic horizon. And obviously I'm oversimplifying on radio. If people can go to Google, Fox News, Guillen, Heaven, I mean, it's all over the place. In India, that thing has been reprinted. It's one of the most successful op-eds I've ever written, and that Fox News has ever, they've told me, it is one of their most successful all time.
Doctor, it is absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to add something to your great explanation that when we do programs here in Arizona and around the country on our side of the visual side of astronomy, we let people know that the speed of light, so they relate to it, is an incredible 670 million miles an hour, which is totally unbelievable because when I was in school, and as you had, in Harvard and at Cornell, I never could quite concept the idea of 186,000 blah, blah, blah miles per second. It didn't seem to relate. Yeah. But when you talk about miles per hour, 670 million miles per hour is well beyond that of what I think most of the people who watch Star Trek. But it's amazing that your article gives us this hope that beyond that horizon, like we said, knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door, may be what? This whole realm that you're talking about called the cosmic horizon and beyond it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And what I find so interesting, and here again, this is just one of many, many examples of where, my mind, number one, I'm kind of just a natural-born intellectual. I'm curious. I just ask questions. And I don't sit still. I dig and dig and dig. I'm like a pit bull, and I don't give up until I find answers. I don't care where the answers come from, but they have to satisfy me. And that's why when I started on my spiritual journey, and this harkens back to what Christine was saying a minute ago, I followed that whole thing with Sagan's Vedas, the Hindu. I got into Hinduism, and then somebody gave me a book on the I Ching, and so I got interested in Chinese mysticism and Confucianism and all that. And then I got into transcendental meditation and then Islam. And my thesis advisor was Jewish, so he would take me to Shabbat services on Friday night. Sure. And so I got into Judaism and so forth. And I got into Christianity kicking and screaming. I tell the story in the book. We don't have time to tell it here, but it's quite an amazing story involving a co-ed at Cornell on Valentine's Day. Let's just tease it at that, Steve. Let's not pursue. That's a great tease, isn't it?
I know you've been in the broadcast world your whole life. This is interesting. And in due respect to the callers out there, I just want to promote the number once again. This is a conversation. Theater of the Mind is what we call this particular format, critical thinking with dialogue. If you'd like to join the conversation, questions, very interesting gentleman here. I love his sense of humor, and I love the humility here that Dr. G is giving us with all the great experience he's had, the multiple PhDs, Harvard, Cornell, blah, blah, and all the way down the line. This interesting documentary, which he's being very upfront, this Invisible Everywhere, this documentary, AI generated. So think about that. Many people out there may want to get in on doing things like this if they have the good side of AI to them, so they can build it. This is an interesting story, an interesting revelation. 1-800-848-9222. But, Doctor, this is fascinating. So that article, not to cut you short, from Fox, you're saying that's one of their most popular in quite some time, I gather.
Yeah, and they told me, and I'm not allowed to tell on, but they called me, and they want me to write many more, and I will be writing another one probably in a couple of weeks. I've just had my hands full with this movie, but they told me on the phone what the reach was, and it blew me away. And they said, "Yeah, it's just crazy." So they're gonna and by the way, there are five op-eds that they want me to write. Almost, to start with. And I'm telling you that they're going to blow your socks off because if you think the heaven one was amazing. But again, it's that, see, here's the thing. I guess here's what it boils down to. I'm this peculiar thing that I'm a scientist first, right? I'm a scientist. My love for science dates back to the second grade, as I explained. So science has been my love all my life, since the second grade, for goodness sakes. And I'm not
it comes through loud
anymore.
and clear, yes.
Yeah,
it sure
right?
does.
But at the same time, because of my spiritual journey, which was kind of parallel, I went on this kind of, I call it my Hermann Hesse journey, because when I went to Olin Library to check out what the Vedas were that Sagan was talking about,
sure,
I came across Hermann Hesse, who's a Nobel Prize-winning German novelist, and I started reading his novels, and I loved them because his protagonists are almost invariably these tormented intellectuals who are asking deep questions, and they go off on some journey, looking for answers. So I thought to myself, well, that's me. As a 20-something-year-old grad student, I said, that's me.
No, that's
so
powerful.
I read Siddhartha, Beneath the Wheel, Goldmoon, and Narcissus and Goldmoon. I've read all his novels. So as a result of this scientific and spiritual journey, which I document in my movie. It's both a scientific and a spiritual journey that I'm bringing to life on the screen.
Sure, it's amazing.
I have come to this awareness that it is possible for the two to live in peace together. There is no conflict between my spiritual beliefs and my scientific beliefs. And
well, Doctor, this is interesting. In my education, I remember having an opportunity. I didn't attend Cornell, but I visited and had an opportunity to sit with Dr. Sagan, and I was pretty impressed with not only the things he was doing with Cosmos at that particular time when it was out, and it was probably the most prolific, but really quick, we got about 2 or 3 minutes left before that big break, the hard break at the bottom of the hour. How would you describe Dr. Sagan, to be fair but honest? Truly described as an atheist in his beliefs, or who knows? I never really got an answer to that.
No, well, he was a little bit coy about it, but he was not an atheist.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. So the audience.
I have enormous respect for him, and I'll say he was an inspiration to me. I took classes from him on exobiology, which is the study of life, along with Frank Drake, by the way. So I had the good fortune of being educated by the two founders of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
You bet.
Frank Drake with his Project Ozma, and Carl Sagan. And let me tell you something else about Carl. I remember him giving a seminar once at Cornell, and he used the words, the awe and majesty of the universe. And in the Q&A section afterwards, he was brought to task by some, random astronomer in the audience who was, I guess, a little too uptight, and he scolded Sagan for using the words awe and majesty. He said, "Those aren't scientific terms. How dare you stand before this audience and talk as an astronomer? You call yourself an astronomer and you're using words like awe and majesty." And I thought to myself, wow, how small-minded. And so I have tremendous respect for Carl Sagan. I think he was a great popularizer. Yes. He inspired me personally. It was good to me personally. I learned a lot.
It's an interesting story.
And I talk about him in my movie.
Well, here's another thing that we don't have time for right now with coming up on this break, but it's interesting. If you look at the old geocentric view of the universe, where religion, of course, let's say Dark Ages, made us believe or forced us to believe that the Earth was the center of the universe because that's the way we are and that's the way it is. And look at the pains and tribulations of people like Galileo, Giordano Bruno, and all those, and Copernicus, that gave us what we now know is truth, the heliocentric view of the universe. Amazing. Yeah. Doctor, we're coming up on that break.
But on the other side of the break, I'll tell you a little something about being the center of the universe. Okay, that's a tease.
I would love to hear that. And your questions, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still on the line, maybe like Alexi in Queens, and all of you out there that would like to have an opportunity, that is, to have a dialogue with our very special guest, Dr. G. And you can do that at 1-800-848-9222. And, Doctor, we normally give a little sky report here, and we'll do that also so people can look at the many wonderful things that are on the calendar in the astronomical world for March 2026. That's so amazing. And if you'd like to email me, it's simply this, just DRSKY, of course, at WABCRadio.com. I do, of course, answer all those emails, and we do appreciate that. I threw it out many times, Dr. G, that if there's people out there that have some suggestions for some guests in those realms, astronomy, space, aviation, weather, many celebrities, of course, that we're going to be having. Even next week, we're looking to get the amazing actress Stephanie Powers on. If you want to talk about somebody who knew Robert Wagner, Heart to Heart, and so many of the other things that she was involved with. And stories like tomorrow night of American exceptionalism as we move back to truth, justice, and the American way. We'll be right back on the Dr. Sky Experience.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, everybody. It's Gene Simmons. When you wish upon a star. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Show. Life is good. Get out there and live it.
He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. As we go back into ancient history, a quote from Marcus Aurelius. 33 minutes after the hour, Dr. G is our special guest, a man with many answers to many of the subject matters that we talk about here on this particular radio show. Welcome back, Doctor. The phone lines are lighting up here, and I'd like to due respect to the callers, Let's continue and say you've been patient. Good morning to Alexi in Queens. How you doing, Alexi? Thanks for your patience.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Sky, and good morning to your guests. Quite frankly, I am very dissatisfied with this whole notion of AI because, number one, it is not a living entity. It has no perception of the characteristic qualities of individuals, human beings, or animals for that matter. It does not know love, hate, anxiety, anticipation, dissatisfaction, or whatever. And it is, the human race is basically at this stage at a point where it makes them incompatible if they are seeking something from AI other than simple information. The interrelationship between AI is a very simple, straightforward one. It is much like an 800-pound gorilla who is standing there smiling down at you saying, "Can I help you?"
I hear you. I hear you, Alexi.
It does not appreciate the qualities inherent in human beings, whether they are good or bad. We are unprepared to deal with AI, and I think it's a big mistake. And the fact of the matter is that I believe this whole impetus of this AI is driven solely and uniquely by profiteers who know that they will make hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars a year by implementing this system. Not only will it create wealth, but it will create a series of changes in society because you don't have the academicians anymore. People are going to school to learn how to fix air conditioners and cars and construction. They don't want to go to college.
Well, I hear your point, Alexi, and I appreciate your critical thinking and your dialogue with us. But let me have Dr. G respond here because, he's doing something, in my opinion, that let the audience decide when they watch and look at this particular documentary. But, Doctor, this is interesting what Alexi talks about in his opinion.
Yeah, I actually agree with Alexi's appraisal of AI. As I said earlier, everything we call AI today is weak AI. It doesn't have anything near human intelligence or general intelligence. So I want to agree with that. I have a Substack page as well, and every Wednesday I publish a new essay. And one of the recent ones was called "The Great News About AI." And what is the great news about AI? The great news about AI is it's forcing us, listen carefully, and this is what Alexi, I think, is talking about. It's forcing us to understand how we are different from AI. What makes us different from AI? And what makes us different from AI is that all the things that Alexi just explained. And I would add our spiritual intelligence. AI is very good at what it does, but it doesn't have the EQ or the SQ that human beings have. So the good news about AI is that I think it's going to help us understand how human beings are exceptional. I think we may have taken ourselves for granted, but now I think AI is forcing us to see the exceptionalism of humanity, and I think that's a good thing. In terms of my movie, I see AI as my collaborator. When I made a movie earlier, The Little Red Wagon, I collaborated with 200 people. In this case, I collaborated with one entity, not a human being, but an entity. And this entity helped bring to life my vision for the movie. But I poured my heart and soul into this thing. I worked for an entire year, 12 hours a day on this movie. So there's a lot of humanity in this movie, even though AI helped bring my vision to the screen. It's my humanity that's in the movie, in the script, in the music that I selected, and so forth. But I basically agree with Alexi.
Well, Alexi, thank you so much for your patience and appreciate your commentary here. Time permits, of course,
yes,
limited time for everybody. But I want to ask you, Doctor, something that I've studied here. And it's a little deep, but I got to go with you because you are the guy that we're getting the answers from here. And again, with your humility, I appreciate that angle, too. Here it is. The cosmic anthropic principle, as you know, the laws of physics tend to have the universe predisposed for life. So if that is the case, would you then feel that that's more toward the belief in a God-type entity that created the universe? It seems to me pretty simple. But does the cosmic anthropic principle of what I just explained lead more to somebody away from the atheistic side? How would you describe that?
Well, the short answer is yes. And it's interesting, I worked with Hugh Downs at 2020, and Hugh was people may not know this, but Hugh was a very intelligent man. I mean, he started out his career selling cars. He was a car salesman.
Yes.
And then he was a game show host. And then he hosted 2020 with Barbara for many, many years, both of whom I just love to death. I miss them so terribly. But I remember once when Hugh first invited me to have lunch with him at the Lotus Club in New York. And I had seen him on TV, of course, many years, but I had never gotten to meet him. But he was the one who reached out to me by email to invite me to lunch. And the first question out of his mouth when we got there over lunch was, what do you think about the cosmic anthropic principle? So in case people don't know what that is, as listening, it's the idea that when I talk about this in the movie as well, there's just so much in this movie, but this is a subject that is very, very important. If we are to understand how the universe came into being, what is our role in the universe, what's our part in the universe, the anthropic principle. I don't use the word anthropic principle. I phrase it differently, but it boils down to the same thing. When we look at what we call certain natural constants of the universe, I call them the vital signs of the universe. When you go to the doctor and you get yourself checked out, they check your vital signs, heart rate, blood pressure, et cetera, right? Well, it's the same way as astronomers, as cosmologists. Cosmology is one of my specialties. It's the study of the origins of the universe. It's when we look at the universe, the universe has vital signs as well. And when we measure those vital signs, lo and behold, they have exactly the numerical values necessary for life to exist. Now, we don't have the time to get into it, but I give 3 examples of these vital signs in the movie, and I explain what they are. And I explain that if they were a little higher or a little lower, I mean, by just a smidgen higher, a little lower numerically, life wouldn't exist. So the question then becomes, and again, here it is, my fellow traveler, I'm just asking a question. Is this a coincidence, or is this not a coincidence? This is a question any intelligent person, any critical thinking person, any honest person will have to ask themselves. This is an astonishing discovery we've made, that the vital signs of the universe are precisely have the numerical values necessary for life to exist. How did that come about?
Exactly.
And so I pursue it. Again, I don't want to give away the movie, but I pursue that line of thinking. And yes,
no, it's
you're
very
absolutely
interesting.
Right.
It's interesting to me, and I'm sure the audience, Doctor. And on a light note, this is more of a personal note, like with your experiences with Hugh Downs, I became very friendly with him in his retirement years out here in Arizona by kind of an accident.
He retired.
Yeah, I was actually asked to speak at certain events, and all of a sudden in one of these communities, I looked and I said, that man looks familiar. And then he came up to me and he said, he said to me, I enjoy these presentations. And he goes, did you know that I was the head of the National Space Society? And I said, yes, I did. So for all these times, both of us have had this experience. But you hear on this radio show, ladies and gentlemen, Doctor, you don't know this because you haven't heard this a lot. We had some opportunities for him to give a nice endorsement to the things that I was trying to do, but I'm humbled because look at that guy. He was, and according to what? You may know this. Supposedly the Guinness Book of World Records said, I think this is pretty factual, or is it? He has more time on radio and television, I think, than any human being in history. Amazing.
Yeah, it's true. And he was being interviewed when he retired. I said to him, Hugh, why in the world are you retiring? You have the best gig in town. You come in like a couple days a week. You tape the show before dinner time on Friday, and you get home. And he said, no. He said something to me that was really quite profound. He said, Michael, in my life, I have learned one thing. He said, I like to repot myself. And those were exact words. I like to repot myself every 10 years.
Wow.
Think about that. In other words, he wanted to reinvent himself every 10 years. That's why he stayed fresh. He was a lifelong learner. I love that man. And
how could you not love him? And we did something, Doctor. We did a television thing called A Cosmic Call, where he read this speech that was going. I introduced him, and it was a video that was sent out into the universe in the event that life is in the universe. But since he's passed on to the, as we call it, to the infinite, I'm still here. So if the aliens get to see it, I'll let you know if they do try to come and get me.
Oh, that'd be great. I'll tell you my one little regret. I wanted to see him one last time because I had heard he was in a nursing home in Arizona.
Yes.
And I was doing a shoot in Arizona. Or I was on business in Arizona. I thought, you know what, I'd love to stop by just for old time's sake and just sit down and with you and just have one more great conversation with him. And it was my everlasting, just devastating to me when they said that he had passed away.
Yes, his birthday was Valentine's Day. And I was with him 2 days before he passed, and that's another story for another time. But, Doctor, we're coming up on that break, but I want to remind people, if Bob in Riverhead's still there and down in Long Beach, we haven't forgotten you, and anybody else that wants to try to move through time and space, the number here, 1-800-848-9222. Doctor, I always give people a little sky report, so we'll do that for about a minute or two. The moon has moved on from that beautiful eclipse, the total lunar eclipse, visible, across much of the nation. But the major planets are Jupiter, high up in the sky at sunset right now. We're moving, of course, very close to the vernal equinox for those that despise the cold. And as I mentioned before, something that may be silly to some people, daylight saving time. Don't forget, Sunday, 2 a.m., spring forward, and for the next 238 days, like it or not, daylight saving time rules. We'll be right back with Dr. G and your questions and comments, 1-800-848-9222. And we take an intermission, so if you want to go to the snack bar, now's the time. We'll be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Hugh Downs. You're listening to Dr. Sky on aviation and space and life.
46 minutes after the hour, the legendary Hugh Downs. Joining with us as we move to the top of the hour, Dr. G. A brand new, groundbreaking AI-generated documentary on science and faith, and you can learn so much more by visiting theinvisibleeverywhere.com. And ladies and gentlemen, the short sky report that we gave you for a much lengthier one, go to the WABCRadio.com website, the Dr. Sky Experience podcast. We have a much lengthier, or much longer, I should say, a little bit of information there on what you can see in the skies. And then proud to say it, every Sunday morning with owner and operator John Katsimatidis. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Dr. Sky update on the Cats Roundtable. And we appreciate that and do look forward to your comments at drsky@wabcradio.com. Doctor, let's continue with the callers. They've been patient. Bob in Riverhead, you're on with Dr. G. Thanks for your patience. How you doing?
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, I love science. I studied biology, and then I went to chemical engineering. Now, astrophysics, let's say science, by Big Bang attempts to reverse engineer the universe. So if we, by analogy, think of disassembling the car, you would find that the design and function of the parts lead you empirically to get some insight to why the parts do what they do and how they work in a system together. So, gaining understanding of the design mind because of that. So it kind of would be a confluence of science and religion. And it gives you the idea that there must be a creator of this vehicle. Now, the other thing I would like to say is that the merger of all religions is really a misnomer, because Christianity is the only religion I understand where God reaches down to man to pull him up. And I was involved in Zen and martial arts and these things and Hinduism, and they all ask you for self-improvement, that you have to be self-enlightened to work your way towards God. There's a distinct difference between those two. So under these constructs, it takes more faith to be an atheist than to believe in a biblical creator. It seems a logical progression to me, that science and religion come together.
Yeah, you bring up some interesting things, Bob, with critical thinking. Doctor, this is an interesting caller. Bob in Riverhead. Go ahead there, Dr. G. This is phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, I love everything that Bob said. I mean, he in just a short while, he said some pretty profound things about the clock. He's absolutely right. In some ways, as a scientist, I feel like I'm at an advantage of understanding God because for precisely that reason. I've spent my entire life, decades, studying the clock. And so I can infer from what I've discovered about the universe, the creator of that universe. So I'll just say that. The other thing he said, and I'm forgetting now, but he said something towards the end. Oh, yeah, about atheists. Yeah. Yeah, sure. That's what happened to me. I mean, you hear so many stories about kids who are raised with the religious belief of Christian, Jews, whatever, and they go to college and they become atheists. Well, just the opposite happened with me. I went in as an atheist, and I came out as a Christian precisely because science really forced my hand. I couldn't deny it. And the other thing is, I think his appraisal of the various religions are correct. What I found quite remarkable when I was studying Hinduism and all the other religions is what set Christianity apart, not only what Bob just said, which is true, but what struck me is the way Jesus spoke. And I get into it a little. I speak about it in the book. I don't get into it so much in the movie, but because I don't have time, there may be a sequel. But what struck me when I first read the New Testament is the way Jesus spoke in a very non-logical way, what I call translogical language, where, love your enemy, you have to die in order to live, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. This is kind of upside-down speaking. And that appealed to me, and that struck me as different than any other religion I had studied up to that point, which were all the major religions, because it reminded me of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics also speaks in that kind of translogical way, a very upside-down way.
I know, and we haven't even gotten into the details and tenets of that.
I know.
So I'm going to ask you this.
That in the movie.
No, I'm going to ask you this in a gentlemanly way. Would you come back in the future, of course, to carry on this conversation into a much more scientific way? Not that we're hearing nothing, that's just not good.
Yeah.
Simply, would you come back and we can do the whole quantum thing sometime, because that's even more fascinating than what relativity is all about, and would you do that? That's all I want to know.
I would. And, maybe we can talk about it, Steve, but maybe after the movie comes out, because if people watch the movie, they may have questions about the movie, because I deal with quantum phenomena in the movie, and I think it would be quite fascinating for you and me to speak, for 2 hours after people have seen the movie.
I totally agree.
To have questions, right?
Right. Go to theinvisibleeverywhere.com. But time permits, let's continue on with Don in Long Beach. You've been very patient. You're on with Dr. G. Good morning, and thanks for your patience.
Sure. Hi, gentlemen. In my opinion, religion and science are not mutually exclusive. Although I don't think anyone has ever seen God, there's an awful lot of evidence that there is a creator. Look at genetics. Look at the systems of the body. We start from 2 cells and become what we become. There's got to be something more behind all of this. And even one thing that struck me one day, I was jogging in the snow. Oh. And as I'm jogging, I see paw prints from a dog. If you look at a paw print and look at the symmetry, it just didn't happen. There's something or someone behind all of this. And just to close, I want to add one more thing.
Go ahead.
We have a brain, and we have, I think I mentioned this to you once before, Dr. Sky, when I called. We have a brain, and we have natural resources, and there's like a symbiosis, if that's the correct word, between both. We know how to extract all kinds of materials from the environment around us, and we can make spacecraft, we can make telescopes, what have you. There's more. There's a God. I'm convinced.
Well, Don, I appreciate you, and your perspective is right on in both of our thinking, but more important, what I think, is what Dr. G's response is. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think Don hit it right on the head. I agree with everything you just said, Don, and I'm living proof that, religion and science are not mutually exclusive. It's a myth, and it's a shame that so many people buy into that myth. But you talk about I love the story about the paw print in the snow. Can I tell you a quick little story?
Go ahead.
Years ago, I wrote a book called 5 Equations That Changed the World. Excuse me. 5 Equations That Changed the World, The Power and Poetry of Mathematics. It was one of the first books I ever wrote, and it became a monster bestseller. It's been translated all over the world. It was named Book of the Year by the book club, by the Publishers Weekly, and on and on. But anyway, I tell 5 stories of 5 scientists who came up with equations that changed the world, and one of them was Isaac Newton. And in my recounting of Isaac Newton's life, which is fascinating, I mean, just absolutely fascinating, I tell the story back when he was alive, which would have been the 17th century in Europe, in England in particular. One of the things that scientists like to do was to enter competitions. So there would be a problem posed at the beginning of the year, and then scientists from all over Europe would try to solve the problem, and whoever came up with the best solution, not just the solution, but the best solution, would win some kind of an award. So it was almost like an Olympics of science that was going on. Now, and during one of these competitions one year, submission was made anonymously. A solution to a problem was submitted anonymously. But another scientist, Bernoulli, read the solution, and he said this. This is why it reminds me of what Don said about the dog print in the snow. He said, "I can tell the lion from his print, from the paw print." In other words, he could tell just from the mathematics. And as a scientist, what my journey from atheism to Christianity was that sooner or later in my journey, I recognized the Creator from the prints from His prints in the universe. Everywhere I look in the universe, whether it's within us or beyond us, I see the prints left behind by the Creator, and that's
a beautiful thing. It really is.
Yeah.
And not to steal thunder from you, Doctor, but those 5 equations, which we'll go into some other time. Newton, as you mentioned, universal law of gravitation. Bernoulli, we're talking about how we can think of how aircraft fly. Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. And, of course, the second law of thermodynamics, which is by basically a story of entropy. And then Einstein's famous E equals mc squared. That's a book that people need to get. But we've only got a few more minutes, and I keep saying that, not to be an apologist, but you know from the professional side of broadcasting, we could do this forever. I do appreciate all the callers. If we did not get to anybody on the phone line, it's not by our plan. It's just that, of course, no apology. But ending off your story of how time and space works, this is an interesting thing. But how about this? We never got into the conversation, which is very controversial. Creationism versus evolution, right? That's another whole subject matter unto itself, right, Doctor?
Yeah, and that's worth tackling. Maybe the next time we have a chance to speak. I will say this though. I will say this as a kind of a little teaser or an appetizer for when we speak about when we speak again together.
Sure.
When people talk about creationism versus evolution, I think they are not doing the subject justice. I think it kind of oversimplifies a more complex and nuanced situation. And this is what I mean. Here's one example of what I mean. You will have even creationists kind of squaring off between the old Earth creationists and the young Earth creationists. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
There are creationists who read the Bible and, quite honestly, interpret the 6 days of creation as literally 6 24-hour days, and so they come to the conclusion, naturally enough, and if you assume that, the conclusion you come to is that the Earth is about 6,000 years old. Fine, okay, and then others will, like Hugh Ross and others, at Reasons to Believe, will look at it and say, well, the Hebrew word yom, which is the word referring to day, which is translated as the word day, can also mean an indefinite period of time. And so they say, look, the Earth is not necessarily 6,000 years old. It could very well be, the 5 billion years old or the 4 and change billion years old that science believes it to be. So my position is this: what both sides misunderstand or are not taking into account is the fact that time is not an absolute.
Well, unfortunately, Doctor, I hate to cut anybody short with the level of knowledge you're bringing, but we'll have to do it again. Dr. G, theinvisibleeverywhere.com. Check it out. An AI-generated documentary premieres April 8th, The Invisible Everywhere. Thanks to our helmsmen, Tony and Bill. And ladies and gentlemen, we wish you clear skies, health, and happiness until the next Dr. Sky experience.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.